Michael Makovsky is a former Pentagon official working on the Middle East, and he is with us now. Hello, Mr. Makovsky.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much. So a holiday in the U.S. tomorrow, except not for anybody on the State Department Middle East desk. One imagines them working all hours right now.
I imagine you're right.
Yeah. Can you give us some context for this statement? Because the statement seems to be saying, hold your horses, the United States is going to review all its financial aid to Egypt and is generally not in support of what's happened.
Right. So, right, there are a couple things here. So, right, it raised the prospect of withholding the aid. So I think it didn't make a decision on that. I think the President Obama probably indicated that as a way to give some, to maintain some leverage with the military, try to guide them, ensure that the military does what the President suggested in his statement, which is, return power to a civilian government. The second issue, as which you also pointed out, is that the President said that Washington is deeply concerned about this. I think now I don't personally agree with the president on his statement about this, but I think the president is somewhat consistent that he's generally taken a more supportive approach towards the Muslim Brotherhood, not just in Egypt and but also in Turkey, and because the ruling party there, the AKP, well, Turkey is a much more liberal country than Egypt is. The ruling party there is actually is ideologically close to the Muslim Brotherhood, and there were demonstrations in Turkey recently, and the Obama administration also indicated strong support for the government and less sympathy with demonstrators. So I think there's a little consistency there. Yeah.
Right. Well, let me press you then on your own views, because if you believe that there is some room for disagreement here, then a pound to a penny, somebody else in Washington thinks there's room for disagreement too. Is somebody going to be saying to the president, or maybe to somebody in charge of these things at the State Department, you may be backing the wrong horse?
I think that the disagreement that will come with President Obama will not be internal so much because since President Obama has been in office, the White House really has been in very firm control of U.S. foreign policy. You don't have you have some of the factions you've had in previous governments, your previous administrations, but you don't have the same bureaucratic divisions to the same extent like you had before. The White House is clearly in charge, so I think where the disagreements with Obama on this, if there will be from outside the government.
The United States could have said nothing and waited to see what was happening. What's the diplomatic advantage of pressing your point of view right now?
It's a good question. I would have rather Obama maybe had a less strong statement at this point, and also shown more sympathy with the anti-Morsi camp. That's my own personal view. I guess he felt he wanted to make a statement to kind of inject the United States in the process to guide, to try to signal the military in no uncertain terms of what the White House would like to see. I would have taken a different approach, though.
But surely, if you were working on the ground there for the U.S. government in the embassy in the last 48 hours, you had all the signs. I mean, they were running up flags for everybody to see. Surely there must have been tremendous amounts of contact between the embassy people and the army, the people potentially in charge.
And not just between the embassy, but also between the Pentagon and in Washington, outside of Washington, and the military and folks in Egypt. I think the militaries between the United States and Egypt have always, I think, had very good relations. Actually, you raise the embassy, which is a good point, because the United States ambassador to Egypt, Patterson, actually has gotten in the crossfires recently by and provoked the ire of a lot of demonstrators by saying essentially that we, the United States, support the government, and this stuff should be resolved at the ballot box and not in the street. So a lot of the demonstrators have raised questions about where the United States is. In fact, one of the ironies about President Obama's statement right now so quickly is that pretty much the United States seems to have been almost disconnected from a lot of Egyptian events for the last couple of years. And there's been a number of criticism, certainly outside the Obama administration in Washington, that the administration has been too tolerant of Morsi and the government's overreach, their violations of human rights, of the oppression, of the attacks on minorities, which, by the way, in fairness to Morsi, preceded him, some of which preceded him taking power. But there's been criticism in Washington that the Obama administration seems almost irrelevant to Egyptian events. So it makes his statement now almost stand out even more.
Michael Makovsky, thanks so much for talking to us.
Well, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.